Do you remember when Donald Trump said this?
BRICS is dead since I mentioned that. BRICS died the minute I mentioned that.
Well, it seems the BRICS nations didn't listen to him, don't care. In fact, in between the time Donald Trump said this and now, additional countries have put forward their bid to join the BRICS. And right now, as I record, there is an ongoing event, the 2025 BRICS Summit, happening in Rio de Janeiro, where all the BRICS countries have got together to talk about strategy, trade, and the rise of the global south. The summit is just the tip of the iceberg, and I've got insights that not too many people are talking about out there, including what I believe is a counter summit that Donald Trump is running simultaneously. For those of you that don't know, my name is TJ. I'm Nigerian and British mixed, and on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics. Right now, as we speak, leaders from nations across the globe are meeting in the city of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. This is the annual BRICS summit, but this year, something is very different. This is not just another round of handshakes and speeches. This meeting is a powerful public act of defiance. It is a clear signal to the entire world that the global power structure is changing. Just a few months ago, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, stood before the world and made a stunning declaration.
I don't care, but was put there for a bad purpose. And most of those people they don't even want to talk about it now. They're afraid to talk about it because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, then they're going to be hit with a 100% tariff the day they mention that they want to do it. And they will come back and say, we beg you not to do this. BRICS is dead since I mentioned that. BRICS died the minute I mentioned that. And I remember when Obama and Biden in particular, I guess he said that, they have us over a barrel. They don't have us over a barrel. We have them over a barrel.
The threat was simple. Any country that chose to continue with the BRICS alliance would face a 100% tax, a crippling tariff on everything they sell to the United States. For the last century, a threat like that from an American president would have been more than enough. It would have ended any summit. It was designed to force countries to back down, to break ranks, and to obey. In the old world we all grew up in, those countries would have had no other choice. But this is not the old world anymore. Instead of scattering, instead of bowing down, the BRICS nations calmly called his bluff. They are holding their summit in Rio right now as planned. Their meeting sends a powerful and unmistakable message. And that message is, the time when a single country could give orders to the rest of the world is officially over. So, what is this summit that earned such a powerful threat? What is BRICS and what are its goals? Officially, the BRICS summit is about building a different kind of world. The stated objective, the one you will read about in the press releases, is to create a fairer global system. They aim to do this with real practical tools. One of those tools is the New Development Bank, or the NDB. This is a multilateral bank like the World Bank, but with a crucial difference. It is designed to fund massive infrastructure projects, roads, ports, power plants, and green energy projects in developing countries without the punishing political strings that have so often come attached to Western loans. It is about development without the forced dependency. Another tool is the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, or the CRA. This is a massive emergency fund, a pool of over $100 billion. It acts as a financial safety net. If a member country is targeted with a currency attack or faces a sudden economic crisis, the CRA is there to protect it. It is a shield that allows nations to avoid going to the IMF and accepting painful austerity measures that hurt their people. But the official statements and stated objectives are only half the story. The most important work at these summits happens away from the cameras, behind closed doors. The unstated objective of these meetings is to build something that cannot be written down in a treaty: genuine trust. This is where leaders from countries that have been ignored and pressured by the West for decades can meet face to face as equals. It is where they build personal relationships and strengthen ties away from Western ears and influence. It is where they can make quiet handshake deals on trade and energy It is where they can coordinate their strategies on tackling shared challenges like how to survive and thrive despite Western sanctions. And most importantly, it is a private space where they can float groundbreaking ideas and brainstorm real solutions. It is in meetings like this that a radical concept, like creating a new global currency backed by gold, can be discussed, debated, and planned long before it is ready to be announced to the world. This is where the real work of building a new system gets done. So, now that we know what BRICS does, both in public and in private, let's look at the raw power that makes it all possible. This is why its defiance matters. The original BRICS group of 5 nations was already powerful, but it has expanded dramatically. Today, the bloc includes global heavyweights that fundamentally change the world map. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, 2 of the world's biggest oil taps, are now members. This gives the bloc immense energy power. Egypt, which controls the Suez Canal, one of the most critical trade arteries on the planet, is a member. Iran, which sits on the other critical waterway of the Strait of Hormuz, is a member. Ethiopia, a nation with a huge population and immense political influence in Africa, is a member. This is no longer a small club, it is a global force. This expanded group now represents 45% of all the people on Earth. And here is the number that truly explains the panic in Washington. The BRICS bloc now accounts for nearly 40% of the world's entire economy. The G7, the bloc of Western nations, including the US, Germany, and the UK, now accounts for only 30%. The balance of economic power has already shifted. For years, leaders in the West dismissed BRICS. They called it a symbolic talking shop. They pretended it did not matter. But today, they are no longer pretending. The threats from Washington are proof. You do not issue an economic ultimatum to a talking shop. You do it to a real and rising power that you can no longer control. So, how does a global power, used to being the only one in charge, react when its authority is so publicly ignored? What does it do when its biggest threat fails to work? At the very same time that the leaders of the new global majority are meeting as equals in Rio, a very different kind of summit is happening in Washington, D.C. President Trump is hosting the leaders of 5 African nations: Gabon, Guinea, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal. Could the timing of this meeting have been a deliberate and calculated countermove? Is it possible that it was scheduled this way to try and pull the world's attention away from the real center of gravity in Rio? These are questions we have to ask. And we must also pause on the word used to describe this meeting: a summons. It is critical that we ask ourselves another simple question. Why does this specific tactic, the invitation to the White House, so often seem directed at Africa? You don't often see a US president summoning a group of 5 European leaders or a group of 5 Asian nations for a similar kind of meeting. So why Africa? Could it be that this approach comes from a deep, old world mindset? A mindset that perhaps still views Africa not as a continent of 54 proud, sovereign, and equal nations, but as a region to be influenced and managed. The goal may not be to openly lecture leaders, but something far more subtle. An invitation to the White House plays on ego. It offers prestige and a photo opportunity. And underneath that friendly surface, a quieter form of coercion can take place. Is it possible that the underlying goal is the age-old strategy of divide and rule? By selecting just 5 countries out of more than 50, does it subtly create a sense of competition, a hierarchy of who is in favor and who is not? Could the goal be to encourage individual relationships with Washington, making it harder for the continent to build a single, unified voice on the world stage? A unified Africa, after all, would control its own resources and set its own terms. A divided Africa is much easier to negotiate with, especially when the goal is resource extraction. The details of the Washington summit seem to point in this direction. We know from the transcripts that the US is moving away from traditional foreign aid. The new focus, in their own words, is on commercial prospects. We even know that the new measure of success for American diplomats in Africa is the commercial agreements they broker. Their job is not just partnership, it is about securing deals that benefit American companies. And let's consider who was invited. The new presidents of Senegal and Gabon are there. Could this also be seen as an opportunistic moment? Is the goal to feel out these new leaders, to test their allegiances? Is the hope to pull them into a Western-aligned camp before they can build strong ties with the new sovereign movements that are rising across the continent? When you look at all these pieces together, the timing, the selective invitations, the focus on commercial deals, you have to ask what the real nature of this meeting is. Is it a true partnership of equals, or could it be a modern, more subtle version of a much older game? To understand why these two summits in Rio and Washington are so different and what it means for the world, we need to step back. We need to look at the big picture of how our world has worked for a very long time. The easiest way to understand it is to think of a simple marketplace. Imagine a small town with only one big store. This one store sells everything the townspeople need to survive: food, tools, clothes, everything. Because it is the only store, the owner has a total monopoly. He can do whatever he wants. He can set his prices as high as he likes. He can sell low quality products. He can be rude to his customers. And there is nothing the townspeople can do about it. They have no other choice. If they want to eat, they have to shop at his store and accept his terms, no matter how unfair. He never has to innovate. He never has to improve. He has all the power. For the last 70 years, for most of the world, the United States has been that one big store. It was the center of the world's financial system, its military power, and its political influence. For countries in the global south, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, there was often no other choice. If you wanted to trade, if you wanted loans to build your country, if you wanted a seat at the global table, you had to go to the store in Washington. And what was the product they offered? The transcripts tell us it was often a system of neo-colonial policies. The product was loans from the IMF and the World Bank that came with very painful strings attached. These loans often forced countries to sell their valuable assets, like their water or power companies, to foreign corporations. They forced governments to cut spending on health and education for their own people. The product was political interference in the affairs of other nations. And if you ever stepped out of line, if you ever tried to choose your own path, the product was punishment. The threat was always there: crippling economic sanctions that could bring your country to its knees. It was a bad deal, but for decades, it was the only deal in town. Now, imagine that one day, something in that small town changes forever. A brand new store opens up across the street. This new store is the BRICS Alliance. The moment this new store opens, the most important thing in the town changes. The customer finally has a choice. The townspeople are no longer powerless. They can walk out of the old store and see what the new one has to offer. They can compare prices. They can compare quality. Suddenly, the power shifts from the store owner to the customer. This new store, BRICS, is offering a different kind of product. It is offering partnerships that it claims are based on mutual respect and equality. It is offering development without the painful political strings. It is offering a vision of the world where there is not one boss, but many partners. This competition is good for everyone in the town. It forces both stores to be better. It forces them to innovate, to offer better deals, and to treat the customers with respect to win their business. The entire town benefits from having a choice. The stagnation is over. The customer, the global south, is finally in the driver's seat. So how has the owner of the old store, the old monopoly, reacted to this new competition? Did he decide to improve his own business? Did he try to offer fairer prices? Did he start treating his customers with more respect to try and win back their loyalty? Instead of competing fairly, The old monopolist is trying to bully his customers. He is standing outside his store, shouting threats at anyone who dares to even look at the new store across the street. This is the 100% tariff threat. It is an attempt to scare the customers away from the competition. He is spreading rumors, telling everyone that the new store is weak and is going to fail. This is what we hear when President Trump declares that BRICS is over, and he is trying to pull a few old, loyal customers aside and offer them a special exclusive deal to keep them from leaving. This is the Washington Summit with the 5 African leaders. It's a tactic to break up the customer base, to prevent them from realizing their collective power. This is not the behavior of a strong, confident business owner who is ready for a healthy competition. This is the behavior of a failing monopolist who is terrified of losing his grip on power. He knows deep down that he can no longer win based on the quality of his product alone. So he has to resort to threats, bullying, and tricks. It is the rage of losing control. To compete in this new global marketplace, the BRICS alliance knew it had to offer real products. It had to build a new system, a new architecture that countries could actually use. And that is exactly what they have done. First, they built their own banks. The New Development Bank, or NDB, is their alternative to the World Bank. Its purpose is to fund the massive infrastructure projects developing nations need, the new ports, the power grids, the railways, but without the heavy political strings that have so often been used to control them. It offers a path to build without having to bow. Then they built a shield. This is the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, or CRA. Think of it as a collective insurance policy for all the members. It is a $100 billion emergency fund. If any member country is targeted with a currency attack, or if it faces a sudden financial crisis designed to weaken it, the CRA is there to protect them. This is crucial. It means nations no longer have to run to the IMF in a moment of crisis and accept a punishing bailout that hurts their own people. This shield breaks a long cycle of financial dependency. These tools are so powerful and so effective that even senior leaders in Washington are now starting to admit out loud that their primary weapon of global control is becoming users.
Today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction them.
Let's break down what he just said. First, notice the incredible arrogance, the casual way he talks about the United States having the ability to sanction other countries, as if it is America's natural right to control the global economy and punish anyone who disobeys. That mindset, that assumption of power, is exactly what the rest of the world is now rejecting. But the real story here is not the arrogance, it is the admission of weakness. What Senator Rubio admitted is just the tip of the iceberg. The part you can see sticking out of the water is that the United States is losing its power to sanction other nations. This is the symptom. For decades, sanctions have been America's favorite weapon. It is how they have punished their enemies and disciplined their allies. The fact that a US senator is now admitting that this weapon is becoming obsolete is a huge deal. The jig, as they say, is up. But the most important question is this: what is the giant hidden part of the iceberg underneath the surface? What is the real disease that is causing this symptom? The real disease, the gargantuan problem that they cannot stop, is a self-inflicted wound. The foundation of American power is the US dollar, and that foundation is cracking, not because of anything being done in Beijing or Moscow, but because of decisions being made in Washington, D.C. Here is the simple truth. For years, the United States government has been spending far, far more money than it takes in from taxes. This has created a mountain of national debt that is now over $30 trillion. To pay for this massive overspending, the government has to borrow more and more money every single year. So, who lends them this money? Increasingly, the answer is America's own central bank, the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve simply creates new dollars out of thin air to buy the government's debt. This is called money printing. And there is a basic law of the universe. The more you have of something, the less it is worth. Every new dollar that is printed makes every other dollar that already exists in the world worth just a little bit less. Countries all over the world in the BRICS alliance and beyond hold trillions of US dollars as their national savings. They are not blind. They are watching the US government pile up a mountain of debt that can never be repaid. They are watching the US print trillions of new dollars to cover its spending. And they are realizing that the currency they are holding, the foundation of their own economies, is being devalued. It is losing its purchasing power. This is the real engine of de-dollarization. Countries are not just being pushed away from the dollar by American foreign policy, like the constant threat of sanctions. They are actively fleeing the dollar because they believe it is an unstable and unreliable currency. They are looking for a safe place to put their savings, a new system that is not built on a foundation of endless debt and money printing. And this is the problem that the United States cannot solve. They are trapped. If they stop printing money, their entire government and economy could collapse. So they have to keep printing. But if they keep printing, the dollar will continue to lose its value, and more countries will continue to run towards the new alternative that BRICS is building. This trend is now unstoppable. The problem is not coming from the outside, it is coming from within. This new global marketplace we have been talking about is not just a competition of economic systems, it is also a competition of values. And there is no issue on earth that reveals the deep moral divide between the old world order and the new one more clearly than the tragic situation in Palestine. On one side, you have the BRICS alliance. During their summit in Rio, they issued a clear, detailed, and unified statement. In their declaration, they aligned themselves firmly with international law, calling for the full support for a Palestinian state on 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as capital. It demands an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, the full withdrawal of Israeli forces, and it firmly rejects any attempt to force Palestinians from their land. This is not a radical position. This is the same two-state solution that the United Nations and the vast majority of countries around the world have been calling for decades. By taking this clear and united stance, BRICS is positioning itself as the defender of a global consensus, a champion for the principles of international law that are supposed to protect everyone. On the other side, you have the United States. It is providing its full, unconditional military, financial, and diplomatic support to an Israeli government that has become one of the most isolated and ostracized nations on the planet. Reports from the ground paint a horrifying picture of the reality. It's been reported that in just the last year, nearly 42,000 Palestinians have been killed. A staggering 69% of those victims are women and children. This means that 1 out of every 55 people living in Gaza has been killed. The level of destruction is almost unimaginable. Approximately 87% of all the schools in Gaza have been damaged or completely destroyed. The explosive power dropped on this tiny strip of land has been compared to the equivalent of 5 nuclear bombs. The official narrative from Israel, which the United States fully backs, is that of a victim. They claim they are a nation surrounded by enemies who want only to destroy it, and that they have no other choice but to act with such overwhelming force. But there is powerful evidence, a stunning testimony that has emerged, which proves this narrative is a deliberate falsehood. It is a statement from a high-level Jordanian official. And the most important part of this is that he was not just speaking for his own country. He was speaking on behalf of 57 Arab and Muslim nations. I want you to listen very carefully to what he said and what he offered.
Prime Minister came here today and said that Israel is surrounded by those who want to destroy it, an enemy. We're here, members of a Muslim Arab committee mandated by 57 Arab and Muslim countries. And I can tell you here, very unequivocally, all of us are willing to right now guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state. He is creating that danger because he simply does not want the two-state solution. And if he does not want the two-state solution, can you ask the Israeli officials, what is their end game?
Let us be absolutely clear about what we just heard. He said, I can tell you here very unequivocally, all of us are willing to right now guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state. 57 nations, the entire Arab and Muslim world, they made a direct public offer of a guaranteed lasting peace. This one statement completely dismantles the core justification for Israel's actions. It proves that there is a partner for peace. In fact, there are 57 partners for peace. The truth is that a path to peace and security is being actively offered by the entire region, but it is being rejected by an Israeli government that is pursuing what many now call an extremist ideology of a greater Israel, an ideology of endless expansion and occupation. And this rejection is happening with the full and unwavering support of the United States. In this moral marketplace, the choice could not be clearer. On one side, you have BRICS and the Global South, aligning themselves with international law, human dignity, and a clear, workable path to peace. On the other side, you have the United States, providing cover for an outlier state that is rejecting that very path. For many nations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, the struggle of the Palestinian people is more than just a distant conflict. It is a powerful symbol of their own histories of fighting against occupation and colonialism. By taking such a clear and unified stance, BRICS is sending a message that resonates with billions of people around the world. It is a message that says we stand on the side of justice. So when we put all of these pieces together, a clear picture emerges. The defiant summit in Rio, the desperate political games in Washington, the failing economic model of the West, and the rise of a new system built on different tools and different values. All of it points to one undeniable conclusion. The monopoly is broken. The era of a single country dictating the rules of the world is officially over. And for us, on the continent of Africa, this is not just a distant news story. This is the most important shift in global power in our lifetimes. For centuries, our continent has been treated as a chessboard. External powers moved us around like pieces in their own great game. They drew lines on our maps, extracted our resources, and pitted us against each other to maintain their control. The divide and rule strategy we see being used today is not new. It is just the latest chapter in a very old book. But this new multipolar world offers Africa the chance to finally close that book. It offers us the chance to stop being the chessboard and become a player, a kingmaker even in our own right. The choice for African nations is now clearer than it has ever been. On one side is the path offered by the old monopoly, a path of subtle coercion, of playing on egos, of commercial deals that benefit others more than us, and of a constant fight to maintain our unity. On the other side is a new path, a path of partnership with nations that have also experienced colonialism and foreign pressure. A path where our vast resources, our gold, our minerals, and our immense human potential are not just commodities to be extracted, but are the very foundation of a new global system. This path offers a seat at the table, not as a junior partner, but as an equal. Finally, consider this. There has been speculation about the absence of China's leader from the Rio summit, but the most important fact is that the summit and the movement behind it is carrying on with its full power and agenda anyway. This proves that the idea of a multipolar world is now bigger and stronger than any single country or any single leader. It has become an institution, a reality with its own unstoppable momentum. The future will not be about choosing a new boss. It will be about choosing not to have a boss at all. It is about choosing sovereignty. It is about choosing dignity. And for Africa, that choice has finally arrived. Now, the BRICS countries are not home and dry. They still have many challenges to overcome in order to really take the place as a representation of a multipolar economic power in the world. What I want to know from you out there, especially the Africans, is do you think it's the right group for Africa to align itself with? I'm sure plenty of you have your opinions. Please leave it in the comments. But if you have nothing to say, would it be too much for me to ask you to write the words BRICS is not over in the comment section? It just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you like what I'm doing, and you want me to continue. Thank you so much for joining me on this video today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.